Hello YouTubers, today's topic is RoboTrek. RoboTrek is a JRPG that was released in 1994 for the SNES. It is published by Enix and developed by Quintet and Ancient. It is somewhat of a unique RPG in that the party system is really just a collection of robots that you create. As the son of the inventor Dr. Akihabara Hamura, your inventions are your weapons. This means that the game is mostly focused around using what is available to you to create new inventions or to upgrade others. The central location of this is called the R&D laboratory. Seeing as this location is necessary to put your inventions to work, they are located in almost every dungeon, including a portable access version available only at level up. Laboratory can produce items learned from a few different methods. The first method is reading about it in a book, usually from the Inventor's Friend series. There are a few specific inventions that are dungeon-related in books as well. The second method is inspiration. Sometimes talking to people will give you an idea. However, only a few items can be learned this way. The final and most common method is a combination of other items. It's probably the only reliable way to obtain most of the inventions. Far from the only use of the laboratory, it also serves an important function that allows you to customize your robots. You can specialize in 5 different attributes, all of which are capped at 99 except for energy, which is what serves as the game's hit points. If that isn't enough, the programs can actually execute specific routines under the run command. The effects of the run command depend entirely on your robot loadout. Some of these commands can be quite effective, others not so much, so experimentation can be useful. Now that I've spent a long time explaining the system, I can give it a proper criticism. Multiple ways of getting new inventions is actually pretty interesting. The fact that you can get new inventions by combining items is awesome. I could not have come up with something better myself. But that doesn't mean the system was without weaknesses, one of which is the majority of the items you can learn about in books are way too imbalanced. There are some good items you can learn how to make from high-level books, but the vast majority are introductory level items of different types. Most of it you don't want in the first place. The reason being is that you've already got an invention which is already better. I have no reason to make a new blade if it's weaker than the axe I'm already swinging. Maybe if it was the only way to damage a specific opponent I might consider it, but almost all enemies are killed by the axe. And next is that the inspiration system feels completely underutilized. For the length of the game, this can be somewhat explained away. After all, most inspiration for inventions is caused by a problem that needs to be solved. However, this leaves open an area which is completely unexplored, namely synergistic recipes. This is somewhat compensated by the combination system. For example, to make an axe, I can combine a hammer and a sword. Therefore, if I learned how to make both a hammer and a sword, I should be able to be inspired to be able to make an axe. Perhaps I would have this inspiration only after combining the two items, but even that would be better than the current system, where I can only learn the axe from Inventor's Friend. Now to touch on the programming of robots. Since you have up to 3 robots available, it's quite possible to make different loadouts that you can switch on the fly. Or since one loadout can do pretty much all content, this feels almost more like a trapper experimenting with weaker loadouts. As I mentioned before, most monsters are definitely dealt with by the axe. There really isn't a reason to use something other than the axe. That's just how powerful the axe is, which means the potential of the system is really limited to mostly just backups in case one of your robots gets defeated. It is unfortunate that the game is unbalanced in such a way, but that isn't the fault of the programming system itself, rather the itemization. Despite the itemization, the programming system itself is still pretty intriguing. The fact that the game allows you to customize your robots means you can pick which path you think is best to do the content. There is more than one path even with the poor itemization. On top of that, there is also the run command. The run command is a pre-programmed sequence that has different effect based on what your robot's loadout is. In fact, the run command can be simple as swinging your weapon multiple times, so attacking all enemies in a flashy animation sequence, similar to some of the skills that the monsters will use on you. Overall, I'd say this system is great and extremely fun to play with, but it could certainly be better, especially the itemization. Now let's talk about the story. As with most JRPGs, the story is pretty linear, meaning that it pretty much goes from beginning to end with little influence by player choice. There aren't even really many side quests to break away from the story. This is not necessarily bad, since the story is still engaging. However, the story can still be boiled down to save the world, which makes it somewhat cliché since this is the most basic format for RPGs. That said, the journey itself is still relatively unique and enhances the experience. My biggest qualm is why the main antagonists are called the hackers. Nothing they do seems to imply that they are hacking anything. To me, they feel like nothing more than petty thugs, so perhaps it doesn't really matter what they're called. Overall, I'd say the story is acceptable. The lore can certainly be drawn out more. The story itself is coherent and enhances the experience. The largest demerit is the lack of lore. However, given that the platform is an SNES, this is an unreasonable expectation and not something that I judge this game on. Modern games with expansive lore don't have to fit on the small SNES cartridges. To briefly touch on the combat, the itemization is really the largest problem. There's just no reason not to use the axe. I'm sure I've harped heavily on this by now. The game has a simple but pleasant turn-based RPG style that takes advantage of a multitude of weapons and actions. The animations are also pleasant to watch. There's some variety of endings to keep the game interesting, although there are plenty of reskins. Combat also includes a somewhat unique system of prizes with the timer. During this timer, it is possible to obtain loot by opening capsules that appear on the battlefield. Not all of the capsules are good, but the vast majority of them are. You keep all of the prizes except bonus experience regardless of the timer. To obtain bonus experience, you must defeat the enemies before the timer runs out. You also gain a small amount of bonus experience regardless of finishing before the timer runs out. For its time, I'd probably give RoboTrek a 7 out of 10 for its innovative invention system and generally fun gameplay. In other words, I believe it's a great game for the SNES. But by modern standards, I find it difficult to give it more than a 5.5 out of 10. The systems that are lacking tend to be much more developed in modern games, which are often just as fun, if not more so. So if you're looking for an old-school SNES JRPG, I highly recommend this game. Otherwise, a more modern game might be a better choice. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe.